All right, this past weekend, Jon Jones officially put an end to the GOAT discussion. And not only that, he made it look easy with a first round finish of Ciryl Gane, a man who's never been finished, and a man who, on paper, looked like he had the potential to be Jon Jones' hardest opponent to date. We all know Jon struggled with opponents roughly his size, with reach, guys who were really good on the feet, guys like Gustafsson, guys like Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes. But at the same time, the glaring hole in Cyryl's game is that he's not a wrestler. And Jon Jones went ahead and took full advantage of that with the first round guillotine submission, making Jon now the heavyweight champion of the world. Over the past couple years, it felt like the GOAT discussion had been blown wide open, with Khabib going 29-0, dominating all of his competition, retiring undefeated, Alex Volkanovski's recent surge, beating Max Holloway 3 times, and even coming so close to defeating Islam Makhachev and becoming a 2-division champion, Usman being just one head kick away from tying Anderson Silva's record, and of course, with all the PED accusations, guys like GSP are still firmly in the conversation. Coming back from a 3-year layoff, and not exactly looking like the super athlete that we're used to seeing, a lot of people were very concerned about how this fight was going to go. We've seen ring rust wreak havoc before, whether it's guys like Conor coming back only to end up with 2 back-to-back TKO finishes, or Nick Diaz looking like a shell of his former self. Coupling that with the fact that Jon's last couple fights were super close, I thought he was in for some trouble. Even if he was going to get the win, he was definitely going to have to work for it. But at the end of the day, he proved me and a lot of other people wrong. Jon came into this fight about the same size as Ciryl, and with his newfound strength, he was able to just bully Ciryl in a way that even Francis couldn't. Turns out, dad bod Jon Jones is a serious problem for the heavyweight division. I will say, Jon definitely looked very rusty on the feet. I think when it comes to ring rust, more often than not, it's going to affect people on the feet. Guys who maybe haven't spent as much time in hard sparring sessions in a situation where the other guy is actually legitimately trying to take your head off. It's hard to come back in that environment and know exactly what you're getting yourself into. But when it comes to the wrestling, Jon is on a completely different level. And what we saw was nothing short of dominance. I mean, taking 3 years off and going up a division, he essentially did what GSP did, but he did it better. He got the finish even earlier without really getting touched, and the gap between 205 and heavyweight is the biggest gap out of all the divisions. When you take all that into consideration, his win streak, now becoming a champion in multiple divisions, making it look that easy, I think the debate is really over. There's no one else you can throw into this conversation. There's no one else whose resume you can put up against Jon's. The guy is totally and completely in a league of his own. So what's next? We already saw Jon call his shot, calling out Stipe Miocic. That fight's probably going to happen in July for International Fight Week, and Jon's kind of flirted with the idea of that potentially maybe being his last fight, and I kind of see why. If he's able to defend his belt at heavyweight against Stipe, the guy considered to be the best heavyweight of all time, there's really not much else he can do. I don't think racking up another defense against a guy like Curtis Blaydes really adds to the legacy. I think once you cross that line of being the GOAT, you're the GOAT. On top of that, even though this fight only lasted a couple of minutes, I felt like it was pretty clear that Jon's striking, especially when you consider his last couple fights at light heavyweight, his striking doesn't usually hold up against guys that are taller with a similar reach to his. So his path to victory versus a lot of guys in the heavyweight division is probably going to be through his wrestling. Stipe is going to be a major test for him. Stipe being a former Division I collegiate wrestler. But since Stipe is getting up there in age, the guy's 40, I feel like you can pretty much bet on him not looking the same as he did in his last fight. And he's also a guy coming off of a pretty big layoff. I think that Jon Jones versus a guy like Curtis Blaydes could be a very interesting matchup. I think Curtis is the one guy in the heavyweight division that could give Jon serious problems. Be really interesting to see if he gets past Stipe, who does he call out next. But if he's able to get that win over Stipe, the greatest heavyweight of all time, he might be in a position where there's really nothing out there that excites him. So while this past weekend we were lucky enough to see the greatest of all time do it again, we're certainly looking at the last couple times that we're gonna see him out there, and I guess we just gotta appreciate him while he's here. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this fight? What do you think about the upcoming fight between Jon and Stipe? And who do you think would have won if we actually got to see the mega fight of Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou? Thanks for watching.